Welcome to another deep dive. Today, we're going way back in time, all the way to ancient China, to explore a text that's as relevant now as it was centuries ago. The Art of War by Sun Tzu. You might be thinking, wait, a war manual for modern life. Really? But trust me, this book is all about strategy. And its wisdom applies to way more than just battlefields.
That's right. The Art of War is essentially a blueprint for achieving victory in any competitive arena, from business negotiations to personal relationships, even though we're using a free online edition from audiobook.com for this deep dive. Its strategies are timeless and valuable.
That's fascinating. Okay, so before we get to the nitty-gritty tactics, I'm curious about the foundation. What are the core principles that underpin Sun Tzu's philosophy?
Sun Tzu lays out 5 key factors to consider in any conflict, which he calls the 5 constant factors. These are like the pillars of his entire strategy.
5 pillars. All right, let's break those down. What's the first one we need to understand?
The first, and perhaps most important, is moral law. Now, this doesn't mean ethics in the modern sense Sun Tzu was talking about. The importance of unity and shared purpose, he believed, that a leader needs to cultivate a sense of camaraderie and inspire their team to work together toward a common goal.
So it's not just about being good, but about creating a cohesive force, kind of like a company culture, where everyone's on the same page and working towards the same vision.
Exactly. Think about those companies known for their strong cultures. They often outperform competitors because their teams are aligned, motivated, and rowing in the same direction.
That makes a lot of sense. So moral law is about internal strength and alignment. What about external factors?
That's where the second factor comes in. Heaven, Sun Tzu was talking about. Understanding the timing and the environment of a situation, he believed it's crucial to be aware of external factors that could influence the outcome of any conflict. Things like market trends, economic conditions, even the weather. It's about recognizing opportunities and threats that are outside your direct control.
So for example, if I'm launching a new product, heaven would be knowing what's already out there, how consumers are feeling, and what the economic climate is like. Basically doing my homework to understand the market forces at play.
You got it. And this leads directly to the third factor, which Sun Tzu calls earth. He was talking about the literal terrain of a battlefield. But this applies to any competitive landscape. It's about understanding your strengths and weaknesses, the resources you have available, and the challenges you might face.
I can see how this would apply to business. It's about knowing your market, your competitors, and most importantly, yourself, your company's capabilities and limitations. That sounds like thorough market research. Is crucial in Sun Tzu's playbook?
Absolutely. In the Art of War, knowledge is power. And the fourth constant factor focuses on the person wielding that knowledge, the commander, Sun Tzu believed. A leader's qualities are crucial to success.
We often hear about the importance of good leadership, but what specific qualities did Sun Tzu consider essential?
He listed wisdom, sincerity, benevolence, courage, and strictness, essentially. A good leader needs to be able to make tough decisions, inspire their team, and maintain discipline, all while demonstrating care and concern for those they lead.
That's a tall order. It sounds like finding the balance
Right.
between being tough but fair. A visionary yet grounded in reality. Not an easy feat, but definitely crucial for long-term success.
Exactly. And finally, we have the fifth constant factor, method and discipline. This emphasizes the importance of organization, clear processes, and efficient execution.
This is where the rubber meets the road, right?
Yep.
You can have the most brilliant strategy in the world, but if you can't implement it effectively, it's all for nothing.
Precisely. Sun Tzu knew that a well-organized team with clear procedures and effective communication will almost always outperform a disorganized one, even if the latter has more talent.
Or resources.
So these 5 factors, moral law, heaven, earth, the commander, and method and discipline, they form the foundation for all of Sun Tzu's teachings. It seems like a holistic approach, considering both the human element and the strategic environment. Absolutely. And one of the most intriguing aspects of his philosophy is the idea of achieving victory without actually fighting.
And that's something I think we can all get behind. I mean, who doesn't love a good David and Goliath story where brains triumph over brawn?
Sun Tzu believed that the greatest victory is the one achieved without bloodshed. He emphasized the importance of subduing an enemy without destroying them, because preserving their resources and infrastructure could be beneficial in the long run.
I can see how that would have been practical in ancient warfare. But how does that concept translate to modern life? Are we talking about avoiding confrontation altogether?
It's more nuanced than that. Think about it in terms of business. Instead of engaging in a costly price war, that could damage both companies. Perhaps one company could acquire the other, merging resources and expertise for mutual benefit. Or imagine two political rivals finding common ground and collaborating on a policy that benefits their constituents.
So it's not about being passive or avoiding conflict altogether, but rather about choosing your battles wisely and seeking solutions that lead to a win-win outcome, whenever possible.
Exactly. Sun Tzu understood that brute force is not always the most effective solution. Sometimes outsmarting your opponent, finding creative solutions, and even collaborating can lead to a more favorable outcome.
That's a powerful idea. So if winning without fighting is one of Sun Tzu's core principles, what's another key element of his strategic philosophy?
Deception and psychology play a huge role in Sun Tzu's teachings. He famously said, all warfare is based on deception, and he provided numerous examples of how to use misdirection and psychological tactics to gain an advantage.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting. I'm picturing all sorts of clever maneuvers, making your opponent think you're weaker than you are, attacking when they least expect it. It sounds like something out of a spy movie.
It absolutely does. But while Sun Tzu was writing about military campaigns, these principles of deception and psychology are surprisingly relevant to modern life.
I can see how this applies to marketing and advertising. Think about those campaigns that create a sense of urgency or scarcity, making us feel like we need to buy a product right now before it's gone. Or those political ads that subtly appeal to our fears and emotions, influencing our voting decisions without us even realizing it.
You hit the nail on the head. These psychological tactics, rooted in Sun Tzu's teachings, are all around us. They're used in negotiations, sales, even everyday social interactions.
So it's about understanding human psychology, knowing how to influence perceptions, and using that knowledge to your advantage. I'm starting to see why the art of war has resonated with people for centuries. It's about so much more than just physical battles.
Precisely. It's about understanding human nature, recognizing patterns of behavior, and using that knowledge to navigate the complexities of human interaction, whether in business, politics, or our personal lives.
That's fascinating. So we've talked about moral law for unity, heaven and earth, for understanding the environment and the playing field, the commander for the importance of leadership, method and discipline for efficient execution, winning without fighting for seeking strategic advantages, and deception and psychology for influencing perceptions. It's amazing how these ancient principles can still be so relevant today. What else did Sun Tzu emphasize in his treatise?
Another crucial element of his strategy was speed and efficiency. Sun Tzu believed that prolonged conflicts drain resources and morale. He emphasized the importance of swift action, decisive strikes, and ending conflicts quickly.
That makes sense. The longer a conflict drags on, the more unpredictable things become. And that uncertainty can be detrimental, whether you're leading an army or running a business.
Exactly. In the business world, think about companies that are slow to adapt to changing market conditions. They often lose ground. To more agile competitors who can quickly adjust their strategies and seize new opportunities.
It's about striking while the iron is hot, making quick decisions, and adapting to change.
And it also relates to Sun Tzu's idea of foraging on the enemy. Now, this might sound a bit harsh in a modern context, but
it doesn't mean literally raiding your competitor's office for supplies, right? I'm curious to hear how this concept translates to today's world.
Of course not. It's about resourcefulness, strategic awareness, and capitalizing on opportunities. Think of a startup that leverages a competitor's weakness to gain market share, or a company that repurposes existing resources in a creative way to reduce costs and increase efficiency.
So foraging on the enemy is less about literal theft and more about being resourceful, adaptable, and maybe even a bit opportunistic.
That's a great way to put it. It's about recognizing opportunities, leveraging your strengths, and being willing to adjust your approach based on the circumstances.
It sounds like Sun Tzu was a big proponent of adaptability and being able to change course when needed. I imagine that ties into his emphasis on understanding the terrain, right?
You are absolutely right. Sun Tzu dedicated a significant portion of the art of war to analyzing different types of terrain, mountains, rivers, valleys, and how to use each to your advantage.
But we're not talking about literal mountains and rivers in the context of, say, running a tech company, are we? So how does this concept of terrain apply to the modern business world?
The terrain becomes the metaphorical landscape of your industry. The mountains might represent areas where you have a strong competitive advantage, while the valleys could be areas where you're more vulnerable. The rivers might represent the flow of information or trends within your market.
So understanding the terrain means being aware of your company's strengths and weaknesses, recognizing potential threats and opportunities, and knowing how to navigate the ever-changing landscape of your industry.
Exactly. Sun Tzu believed that a skilled strategist knows their terrain intimately and uses it to their advantage. They position themselves on the high ground, fortify their defenses, and exploit their opponent's weaknesses. Based on the lay of the land,
It sounds like Sun Tzu was advocating for a deep understanding of your competitive environment, almost like a chess player who anticipates their opponent's moves several steps ahead.
that's an excellent analogy. And speaking of anticipating moves, Sun Tzu also breaks down the battlefield into 9 different situations, each with its own set of challenges and opportunities.
9 situations. Wow. Okay, so instead of listing all 9, maybe we could pick a couple of the most interesting ones and explore how they relate to modern challenges.
That's a great idea. Let's start with hemmed-in ground. Imagine you're feeling stuck in a project or a job. That feels like a dead end. With no clear path forward, you're surrounded by limitations and obstacles.
I think a lot of people can relate to that feeling of being trapped, whether it's in a job, a relationship, or even just a mindset. It can feel incredibly frustrating and demotivating. What advice does Sun Tzu offer for navigating this type of terrain?
Sun Tzu's advice for hemmed-in ground is to use stratagem. It's about finding creative solutions, thinking outside the box, and creating your own escape route. He emphasizes the importance of resourcefulness, cunning, and even a bit of deception to overcome seemingly insurmountable obstacles.
So it's about not giving in to the feeling of being trapped, but instead using your ingenuity to find a way out, even if it means taking an unconventional path or challenging the status quo.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that limitations often exist only in our minds. By shifting our perspective, thinking creatively, and being willing to take calculated risks, we can often find ways to break free from even the most confining situations.
That's really inspiring. It reminds me of the saying, where there's a will, there's a way. It sounds like Sun Tzu believed that even in the most challenging situations, there's always a solution, if you're willing to think differently and take action.
Absolutely. And another one of the 9 situations that I find particularly relevant to modern life is serious ground. This is when you're deeply invested in a venture with a lot at stake. You've committed significant resources, time, and energy, and failure is not an option.
That sounds like a high-pressure scenario, like launching a startup or making a major life decision that could have significant consequences.
Exactly. And in these situations, Sun Tzu emphasizes the importance of careful planning, securing your resources, building strong alliances, and minimizing risk. He advises leaders to be cautious but decisive, to move strategically but not impulsively.
So in serious ground, it's about being bold but not reckless. You need to be confident in your vision and willing to take calculated risks, but also prepared for potential setbacks and have contingency plans in place.
Precisely. It's about finding that balance between ambition and prudence, between pushing forward boldly, but also having a safety net in case things don't go as planned.
This is really insightful. So far, we've covered some of the key principles and strategies outlined in The Art of War. And it's fascinating to see how these ancient teachings can be applied to modern challenges. But there's one element of Sun Tzu's philosophy that I'm particularly curious about, his emphasis on spies and intelligence gathering.
Oh, yes.
Sun Tzu was a firm believer in the importance of information. He devoted a significant portion of The Art of War to discussing the role of spies and the various methods of gathering intelligence on your opponents. I imagine this was crucial in ancient warfare. But how does the concept of spying translate to the modern world? Are we talking about corporate espionage or hiring private investigators?
Not necessarily. While there are certainly unethical and illegal forms of intelligence gathering, Sun Tzu's teachings can be interpreted in a much broader and ethical context.
So instead of sneaking around in the shadows, what kind of spying did Sun Tzu advocate for?
He actually outlined 5 types of spies, each with a specific role to play in gathering information and influencing the enemy. He talked about local spies who blend in with the population, inward spies who infiltrate the enemy's ranks, converted spies who are actually double agents working for you.
Wait, double agents. This is getting juicy. Sounds like something out of a James Bond film. Tell me more.
Yeah.
about the other two types of spies.
He also mentioned doomed spies who are sent on missions specifically to spread misinformation and sow discord among the enemy, and surviving spies who are those who make it back from enemy territory with valuable intel.
Sounds like Sun Tzu had a whole network of undercover agents working for him. But how does all this espionage translate to the modern world? We're not sending people on secret missions to infiltrate our competitors' offices, are we?
Of course not. But the underlying principle of gathering information remains incredibly relevant. In today's business world, spying takes on many forms: market research, competitive analysis, attending industry conferences, analyzing social media trends, even just having conversations with customers and partners.
No, it's not about literal cloak and dagger operations, but about being informed, staying ahead of the curve, and understanding your competitive landscape as thoroughly as possible.
Exactly. It's about using all the tools at your disposal to gather information, analyze trends, and anticipate your competitors' moves. Just like Sun Tzu believed that a skilled general knows their enemy as well as they know themselves. A successful business leader needs to be constantly gathering intelligence and staying informed about their industry.
It makes sense. In today's fast-paced world, information is power. The more you know about your competitors, your market, and even your own strengths and weaknesses, the better equipped you are to make strategic decisions and achieve your goals.
Absolutely. And that brings us to another key takeaway from The Art of War: the importance of leadership. Sun Tzu believed that a good leader not only understands strategy and tactics, but also cares for their troops, maintains discipline, and inspires courage.
That sounds like a very holistic approach to leadership, considering both the strategic and the human elements. It's not just about giving orders, but about fostering a culture of trust, respect, and shared purpose.
Precisely. Sun Tzu understood that a leader's actions and character have a profound impact on the morale and effectiveness of their team. He emphasized the importance of leading by example, setting high standards, and demonstrating both competence and compassion.
So even though we're not leading armies into battle, there's a little bit of General Sun Tzu in all of us.
Right.
Whether we're leading a team at work, managing a family, or just trying to achieve our own personal goals, those principles of leadership, vision, discipline, and empathy can be incredibly valuable.
Absolutely. And it's fascinating to see how a book written centuries ago about military strategy can offer such timeless and relevant insights into human nature, leadership, and the pursuit of success in any field.
It really is remarkable how Sun Tzu's wisdom transcends time and cultures. We've covered so much ground already, from the 5 constant factors to the importance of deception, speed, resourcefulness, and even spying in a modern context. It's clear that the art of war is about far more than just physical battles. It's a guide to navigating the complexities of human interaction and achieving success in any competitive arena.
You've captured the essence of Sun Tzu's philosophy perfectly. His teachings aren't just about winning wars, they're about understanding human nature, mastering strategy, and achieving your goals through a combination of intelligence, cunning, and adaptability.
It's like he's giving us a cheat sheet for life. But before we go any further, I think it would be helpful to circle back and distill some key takeaways for our listener. If they only remember 3 things from our deep dive into the art of war, what should they be?
That's a great question. I think the first and most important takeaway is to always be thinking strategically. Whether you're facing a major business decision, a personal challenge, or even just planning your day, Sun Tzu's principles can help you approach any situation with a more strategic mindset.
So instead of just reacting to events, we should be thinking several steps ahead, anticipating potential challenges, and planning our actions accordingly. It's about being proactive rather than reactive.
Precisely. It's about taking a step back, assessing the situation, considering your options, and making informed decisions that align with your long-term goals. Just like a chess player thinks several moves ahead, a strategic thinker anticipates potential outcomes and makes choices that position them for success.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so strategic thinking is takeaway number 1. What's the second key insight our listener should remember?
The second takeaway is to know yourself, both your strengths and your weaknesses. Sun Tzu emphasized the importance of self-awareness. In the art of war, he believed that you can't outsmart your opponent if you don't even understand yourself.
It's like that saying, know thy enemy and know thyself. And in 100 battles, you will never be defeated. But so often, we focus on trying to figure out our competitors or the enemy without taking the time to truly understand our own capabilities and limitations.
Exactly. Sun Tzu would argue that understanding your own strengths and weaknesses is just as important as understanding your opponent's. It's about being honest with yourself, about what you're good at, and where you need to improve.
That requires a lot of self-reflection and honesty. But it's essential for making sound decisions and developing effective strategies. If you overestimate your strengths or ignore your weaknesses, you're setting yourself up for failure.
Precisely. And this ties into the third key takeaway from The Art of War, which is to never underestimate the power of information. In war, in business, in life, knowledge is power. Sun Tzu was obsessed with gathering intelligence on his enemies, and he believed that the more information you have, the better equipped you are to make strategic decisions.
This goes back to his concept of spying, right?
Right.
But as we discussed earlier, it's not about literal espionage, but about being informed, staying curious,
Yeah.
and constantly seeking knowledge.
Exactly. In today's world, information is readily available, but it's also overwhelming. The key is to be discerning, to know where to find reliable information and to be able to sift through the noise and identify the insights that are truly valuable.
It's about being a lifelong learner, constantly seeking new knowledge, and staying ahead of the curve in your industry or field of interest. And as Sun Tzu would say, never underestimate the value of a good spy, whether it's a trusted advisor, a mentor, or just someone who has their finger on the pulse of what's happening in the world.
I love that. So to recap, our three key takeaways from The Art of War are: think strategically, know yourself, and never stop learning. These principles, though ancient, are incredibly relevant to navigating the complexities of modern life and achieving success in any field.
It's amazing how a book, written over 2,500 years ago, can still offer such profound and actionable insights. I'm definitely feeling inspired to revisit The Art of War and delve deeper into Sun Tzu's wisdom.
I encourage you to do so. You'll be surprised by how much resonates with you and how you can apply his teachings to your own life, whether you're leading a team, negotiating a deal, or simply trying to navigate the challenges of everyday life.
Now, before we send our listener off to conquer the world, armed with their newfound Sun Tzu knowledge, I want to leave them with something to ponder. One of Sun Tzu's most famous quotes is, "Every battle is won before it's ever fought."
That's a powerful statement. It speaks to the importance of preparation, strategic planning, and anticipating your opponent's moves.
Exactly. So I want to pose a question to our listener. What does that quote mean to you? How does preparation and strategic thinking contribute to your success in your personal and professional endeavors?
It's a question worth reflecting on. Think about a time when you achieved a significant victory, whether it was closing a big deal, completing a challenging project, or even just overcoming a personal obstacle.
How much of that success was due to your preparation, your planning, your ability to anticipate challenges and develop solutions before they even arose?
Sun Tzu believed that victory is often determined not by brute force or sheer luck, but by the groundwork we lay beforehand. It's about thinking ahead, anticipating potential obstacles, and developing a strategy that positions you for success.
He's saying that the real battle is often won in the mind, in the hours of preparation and strategic planning that precede the actual confrontation.
Precisely. And this applies to so many aspects of life. Think about athletes who spend countless hours training and practicing before a big competition. They're not just building physical strength and endurance, they're also developing mental toughness, rehearsing strategies, and visualizing success.
Or consider a lawyer preparing for a trial. They meticulously research case law, interview witnesses, develop arguments, and anticipate the opposing counsel's strategies. The outcome of the trial is often determined not just by what happens in the courtroom, but by the countless hours of preparation that led up to that moment.
Exactly. And this principle applies to business as well. Companies that invest in market research, carefully analyze their competitors, develop sound business plans, and build strong teams are far more likely to succeed than those who fly by the seat of their pants.
It's about being proactive, not reactive. It's about taking the time to think through your goals, develop a plan, anticipate potential challenges, and prepare yourself mentally and strategically for whatever lies ahead.
And this brings us back to Sun Tzu's brilliant insight: every battle is won before it's ever fought. The real victory is often achieved not on the battlefield, but in the hours, days, weeks, or even years of preparation that precede the confrontation.
So, dear listener, as you go forth and navigate the battlefields of your own life, remember Sun Tzu's wisdom. Take the time to think strategically, know your strengths and weaknesses, gather information, and most importantly, prepare yourself mentally and emotionally for the challenges that lie ahead.
Remember, success is not just about talent or luck. It's about preparation, strategy, and a relentless pursuit of knowledge and self-improvement.
And with that, we'll leave you to ponder Sun Tzu's timeless wisdom and see how you can apply it to your own life. We hope you've enjoyed this deep dive into the art of war. It's been a fascinating journey, exploring how ancient wisdom can still be so relevant and insightful in the modern world.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? How often do we jump into situations without a plan, without considering the potential consequences, or even our own strengths and weaknesses?
It's a common trap. We often get caught up in the heat of the moment, reacting impulsively, rather than responding strategically. But Sun Tzu reminds us that true mastery lies in preparation, in thinking ahead, and in approaching every situation with a clear mind and a well-defined plan.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the art of war, what's the one piece of advice from Sun Tzu that you think everyone should take to heart, regardless of their profession or personal goals?
That's a tough one. There's so much wisdom packed into this ancient text, but if I had to choose just one piece of advice, it would be Sun Tzu's famous line. Supreme excellence consists of breaking the enemy's resistance without fighting.
There it is again. Winning without fighting. It seems like this concept is at the very core of Sun Tzu's philosophy.
It absolutely is. And while it might seem counterintuitive, especially in a world that often glorifies aggression and dominance, this principle is incredibly powerful and relevant to modern life.
Because it's about being smart, not just strong. It's about using strategy, diplomacy, and even a bit of cunning to achieve your goals without resorting to brute force or unnecessary conflict.
Exactly. It's about choosing your battles wisely, knowing when to fight and when to negotiate, and always seeking the most strategic path to victory.
So instead of charging headfirst into every challenge, we should take a moment to assess the situation, consider our options, and look for opportunities to outmaneuver or outsmart our opponents, whether they're literal adversaries or simply obstacles standing in our way.
Precisely. It's about thinking like a chess player, anticipating your opponent's moves, and positioning yourself for success.
So, dear listener, as you go forth and conquer the challenges of modern life, remember Sun Tzu's wisdom. Be strategic, be adaptable, be resourceful, and always strive to achieve supreme excellence by breaking the enemy's resistance without fighting.
And never forget the importance of preparation, self-awareness, and a constant pursuit of knowledge. These are the keys to unlocking your full potential and achieving victory in any field.
We hope you've enjoyed this deep dive into the art of war. It's been a fascinating journey, exploring the timeless wisdom of Sun Tzu and discovering how his ancient teachings can still be so relevant and insightful in the modern world.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.